Good afternoon. Great to be here again. I want to thank Eyal and the team for staying on course, especially in light of the fact that oil prices have dropped so significantly in recent weeks, and I can understand that some people are back into complacency and think maybe our problems have been solved, but that's not the case. As you know, this program of the Israeli government is a 10-year program, and it may be worthwhile to start off the conversation today by reviewing what happened in the past year and see where we made progress and where progress hasn't been made, and then we kick off the panel. So perhaps the most important piece of news coming out of the past year is the North American oil rush. What you see here is one of many towns that are being erected throughout the United States, particularly in a largely neglected until recently state called North Dakota. And North Dakota today is the second largest oil-producing state in the United States, producing more oil than California and Alaska. And that has contributed to the market about 3 million barrels, and you all know what that did to oil prices. But I would urge you and urge all of us to take a look at the chart coming from the latest report by the International Energy Agency, in which we can clearly see that despite the immediate impact on the market and on prices, this is certainly not a sustainable pathway. In other words, this is, you can see that we're probably going to have maybe a decade of this, but as you know, cars that are being put on the road will be on the road on average 15 years. So if you take the long-term view, you realize that we cannot afford to sink into complacency and forget about the alternatives and think that the problem has been resolved for us just because we learned how to frack and crack and get some more oil out of rocks in North Dakota. More than that, we can see that most OPEC countries, most oil-producing countries, certainly OPEC, Middle Eastern countries, Russia, need oil to be at much higher prices than they are today. Most of them need triple-digit oil, and therefore they will not let this type of price level to last for too long, because they need to survive, they need to feed a lot of people and take care of a lot of people, otherwise they're going to end up like Mubarak, and they will make sure the price goes up to where it used to be. What we saw recently is no other than a declaration of war by Saudi Arabia and the rest of OPEC countries against the United States, because their goal is to drive the American oil producers out of business, to bankrupt them, and then resume control over the market to the detriment of all of us. Second development that is worth paying attention to and really got emphasized in the past year is China's air pollution crisis. I call it crisis because in many of the large cities in China, certainly during the winter, this is the picture that you see. Now, why is it relevant to our story? Because when you live in conditions like this, the pursuit of new fuels, cleaner fuels, new modes of transportation is a national urgency. And we have today with us guests from China, and I'm sure that they will relate to it in greater detail. You can see that China is taking active measures to depopulate its vehicle fleet. You can see here one of the approaches they're taking is creating a sense of certificate of entitlement. To get a car, sometimes to get a permit to own a car is much more costly than the car itself. And that's one of the drivers of it is the fact that they just cannot have so many cars running on petroleum fuels because of all of those reasons that you know very well. And that will require not only the introduction of new fuels, but also new forms of mobility. To that, that's one of the things that happened as a result of last year's summit, was Prime Minister Netanyahu's announcement on the formation of what we call the Joint Alcohol Fuel Alliance, JAFA. This is a picture you can see from the inaugural meeting that we held in June in Beijing with some of our colleagues. Some of them are with us today. Earlier today, we held another meeting. And the idea of JAFA, this alliance, is to share experiences, share best practices, exchange information. A lot of very important things are happening in China. Other things are happening in Israel, in the United States, on the legislative front. And what we try to do is really to create a stronger sense of community and exchange information, particularly as it relates to alcohol fuels. Beyond alcohol fuels, a word or two about electric vehicles. Two things that happened this year. So if you owned shares or equity in Better Place, you lost them, okay? Because we all know that in the past year, Better Place was eliminated. And I won't get into reasons, it's not so important, but what we have to understand is that the lesson is not that electric vehicles are not viable. Because on the other side of the screen, you see that if you at the same time invested in Tesla stock, you'd more than double your money. That tells you that the story of electrification is complex. Not everybody will succeed. Some will do better than others. We should not get into the mindset that just because one or two or three companies did not find their way, that electrification of transportation is not viable. It is, but it will take time. And we have to understand, I think that we had expectations that were largely exaggerated, and we have to invest a lot of effort in upgrading the grid, the electricity system, to enable it to accommodate large numbers of electric vehicles. Most countries don't have the national infrastructure, grid infrastructure, to manage the load of a large number of electric vehicles. So it's not only about reducing the cost of the battery or getting the car to be cheaper. I think the problem is much bigger to make the grid able to manage the loads, and I think that there is tremendous experience that have been collected here in Israel from the Better Place story, that even though the company itself did not succeed, I think that the legacy that it left and the knowledge that it accumulated will be extremely important for the future of electrification. The last thing, or last trend that I think that is worth mentioning here has to do not so much with fuels and modes of how to move your four wheels, but really in a much bigger development that is happening right in front of our eyes, and that is the nexus between transportation and what we call the Internet of Things. Our car is becoming a platform for data, for communication. I think that we all know that companies like Google, Apple are increasingly interested in the car as a vehicle for communication, operating systems that are designed for cars, and quite soon cars will see new models of autonomous cars on the road. There are some interesting developments in this respect, certainly in the United States, that to the degree that some states even are revising their rules to allow autonomous cars to roam the roads. And I think that it brings me to the last point, which is really to understand that there is a whole component that we tend to neglect, and that is not only fuel choices, but also choices in mobility modes. And I think that one of the thought leaders actually on this is my colleague Annie Corrin, who's, I hope, in this room, who runs the Mobility Choice Coalition to look at new modes of transportation and how they fit into the picture and how they enable choices in mobility in parallel to choices in fuel. And I think that maybe that's a good segue to invite our first speaker, Dr. Bernard Bleto, Vice President of Mobility Services at BMW. By the way, you know what BMW means in Chinese? Be my wife. Because if you have a BMW, you are more likely to get a fitting wife to marry you. So please, Bernard, join us.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Actually, I don't have a picture of my wife, but it would be nice to show her. But I met her even before I started working for BMW, but I think it was still a great choice. Talking about choices, I think it was a great introduction by Gal, because I would also like to tell you a little bit about how we think about choices at BMW in the background of mobility services. Well, why are we doing this? Gal already mentioned a lot of the background. We see growing urbanization, but in parallel also a growing mobility need of people. And that, of course, leads to problems. It's fuel, it's congestion, it's emissions, and I think that's something that we are really focusing on to look at it from the customer perspective. And here it causes the problem because the customer on one hand is a citizen that experiences the pollution. On the other hand, he's a mobility user and his cost of ownership increases, which he also doesn't like, and it may get more inconvenient to become mobile. Now, that's really a problem. Now, with every problem, there's also an opportunity behind it. And the opportunity is especially for those people that think they can contribute to the solution of the problem. And that's exactly why BMW already in 2007 adjusted its strategy. Now, many of you know probably BMW and the ultimate driving machine. If you phrase this in terms of strategy, we say we want to be the leading provider of products for individual mobility. But in our new strategy, you see another word coming up, which is in parallel to products, it's about services. And that's exactly the new motivation behind our strategy to go beyond products. And I'd like to explain to you what we mean by services in the next slides. Now the target is defined, become the leader in providing products and services. Now the question is how to get there. And here comes a little bit of a problem, because when you look into it deeper from an industry perspective, you realize this is not just going to be a normal evolutionary change, this is going to be an iconic change. And with iconic changes, it's sort of a problem. It's like two S-curves overlapping, and the old S-curve is still absolutely necessary to generate the profits that you need to transfer yourself to the new S-curve. And in other words, what you have to do two things that usually don't go together very well, which is evolution and revolution. But we said we're going to take on the challenge. And so on one hand, we will continue to develop and offer our already today great products, also with different fuels. And also here, I think we can and will already contribute hugely to the solution of the problems, because those products also will have reduced fuel emissions and other features that will help to secure mobility. But on the other hand, there's revolution. And a revolution for BMW is one letter, it's the letter I. And that's the reason why we introduced our new brand, BMW i, a few years ago. And this brand stands for two things. On one hand, vehicles. I guess you would have expected that. And on the other hand, also new service models. Now, when it comes to vehicles, what's the revolution? I think the revolution is that those vehicles are the first premium vehicles that are purposely designed for electric mobility. So it's the i3 and the i8. It's cars that have a full carbon plastic reinforced body, that are very light, that are really electric cars, battery electric cars, or plug-in hybrids, and that are really fun to drive. And I think when it comes to individual mobility, the i3 is the most fun to drive electric car within the city. On the other hand, we said this is not enough, because from all what was told so far, there's more and more people in the city that say, well, it's not my first choice to buy a car and own it, but I have a mobility need and I want to get around, I want to get from A to B. And that's why we said we want to create a suite of services that also access these customers and address their need, and at the same time are able to contribute to the sustainability that we need in the future. When we started to create these services, we thought, what is kind of an important message to a customer in a city that has a mobility need? And what we came up with is we thought, well, a customer in a dynamic, new, energized mega city, when he wants to be mobile, he wants to have it instantaneously, spontaneously, comfortable and reliable. In one simple word, he wants to have it now. And that's why we created a family of brands and services. We call it the Now family. And I would like to describe those services to you in the next few minutes. It's Drive Now, Charge Now, and Park Now. Let's start with Drive Now. Drive Now, we launched about 3 years ago, and it's the first all-premium, full flexible car sharing system. Now, what does this mean from a customer perspective? When you live in a big city where Drive Now is present, all you have to do is you go and register once, and you show your driver's license, and then basically you can go. You download the app, and you can locate a Drive Now car in your vicinity. Shouldn't be more than a few hundred meters away from you. The cars are normally equally distributed within the inner part of a big city. You locate the car, you reserve it through the app, you go there, and you open it with your smartphone or with your customer ID card. Then all is left to do is you punch in a PIN code, and press the start button, and you can start driving a BMW or a Mini. You can drive it anywhere as long as you want, and the special feature here is you do not have to return it to the spot where you rented it, but you can return it everywhere within, let's say, the inner part of the city. It costs 31 cents per minute in Germany, and it's basically an all-in rate because it contains the use of the car, the parking, and the fueling, and the insurance. So it's kind of an all-in mobility offer. Drive Now has been very successful so far. We have in 5 German cities more than 350,000 customers. We have up to 16,000 rides per day with the car, and we're growing by a huge rate. And the best of the story is we are profitable since this summer. This has also led us to the decision to now really roll out the service. So we launched in Vienna, we will launch in the UK tomorrow, and there's more interesting cities to come. We also launched the US. We have a version with all electric cars in San Francisco, and we'll extend that. So stay tuned. Now, Drive Now also has another additional benefit. It was a great way for us to also introduce electric mobility to our customers. So currently we have about 200 cars, electric cars in the fleet, And also with, let's say, relatively small amount of cars, we had already over 100,000 rides and 50,000, almost 50,000 people that could experience electric driving. And we think that's a great step forward, because whenever somebody has experienced electric driving, normally he's really excited and he really thinks of doing more of this. And another important thing is we have another big stakeholder in this game, which is the cities, because we want to contribute to the reduction of the traffic and emission problems. We now can really tell the cities what they need to do if we want to have car sharing with all electric cars. So we now understand pretty well in the cities where we're at, what is the hotspots, where do we need infrastructure to finally also operate full electric car sharing on a profitable base, which I think will be an important step forward to solve some of the city's congestion problems. Now, I talked about private customers, I talked about cities, but there's also another stakeholder in the game, another potential customers, which is corporates. And here we also created an offer that's called Alpha City. The idea behind it is that many corporates have car fleets, and they are used during the day for business trips of their employees. However, they're not utilized overnight and on the weekend. And with this Alpha City product, where the cars contain our technology, first of all, the people that use the cars for the business trip can do it more hassle-free, because you don't have to handle keys anymore. You just reserve the car and then you can go. And secondary, which is even more important, the employees can use those cars for their private purpose overnight or on the weekend when the cars are normally not utilized. So the idea is it's a win-win situation. Employees can use cars for a relatively small rate in addition, but also the corporate company reduces the cost of ownership because it gets some money back through the higher utilization of their cars. ChargeNow is the second member of the Now family, and as already discussed, we think it's an important enabler for growing electric mobility. We decided to build the ChargeNow product when we were thinking about launching the i3. And of course, when you have an electric car, you want to also use public charging infrastructure. But then we discovered in many countries, for example in Germany, there's areas where you would need to register with 10 different charging operators to access the infrastructure. And that means 10 times registration, maybe 10 different cards in your wallet, and whenever you get to a charging station, you have to juggle around with the cards and see which one fits. And we said this is not premium. Premium is you have one sign-on, and you have one card, and you basically have access to ideally all the charging stations that are around, and it's guaranteed that your car is going to work at that charging station. So that's basically what ChargeNow stands for. I think today, from a brand perspective and user experience, we have the largest. ChargeNow gives you the access to the largest network. It's more than 24,000 charging stations worldwide, and it's already present in 19 countries. Now, the last member of the family is ParkNow. Now you may say, well, parking, that's basically the opposite of the ultimate driving machine because it's static. But if you think about it a little more, every journey starts and ends with parking. And we know from our customers that parking problems, that parking is one of the biggest pain points for them. So already that would be a good enough reason for BMW to think about parking. But it goes even further because we also know that it's one of the bigger pain points in the city. Because in many cases, more than 30% of the traffic in an inner city is search for parking. So if you can also do something to decrease this number, also the city is happy. And that's why we started ParkNow. We started it as a pilot. It is a service where you can reserve and book a parking spot in advance. You'll have it guaranteed, no more circling around the block. And also your payment process is seamless, no looking for credit card or or money in your pocket. We launched it in San Francisco 2 years ago, and we're now going to roll it out together with a partner, and will also include on-street parking. Now, this is kind of the now family of services that we are launched and we're going to expand. But there's also another aspect. As you see, I mean, we're also covering already a spectrum of mobility, but we know there's a lot more aspects of mobility that need to be covered, and there will be also some new surprising products that are going to come that neither one of us is thinking about now. Now, how do these products in many cases come about? Not only because a corporate has a smart idea, but because a lot of young dynamic startups have smart ideas and a huge dynamic to develop them. And that's why we said, in addition to the family of brands that we are developing, also together with partners, we have founded BMW I Ventures, which is a company that invests in young startups on the field of mobility. Some examples here are My Cityway, which is a city portal, information portal, so it has, first of all, nothing to do with cars, but with mobility. Life 360 is a family network. I think it's currently our most successful investment that we have. Here's what it does. It lets you share your location with your family members all the time, instantaneously. Now, some of you may say, I'm not sure if I want that, and that's certainly true. But on the other hand, there's already more than 80 million people that said this may be useful because I know where my kids are, feel more safe, I know exactly how I can pick them up. So it's also a mobility service that we will soon also integrate in our BMW cars. And we have further investments, for example, ChargePoint, ChargeMaster are charging operators that have helped us to develop the Charge Now service. And there's more to come. We are also in discussion with company here in Israel, and we're really excited to see the scene here. Let me close with my favorite fuel choice. I think that is currently the most emotional fuel choice that you can have, which is our i8, which gives you the choice to drive electric or with gasoline in a very emotional way. Well, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Seems like we live in an era in which everything needs to happen now. Sign of our time. But from here we will move to China, where things do happen. Sometimes things take more time there. And we have a wonderful guest here that I'd like to invite, that I've known for several years, Mr. Ma Liang, who runs the association that is responsible in China for everything to do with alcohol fuels and alternative fuel vehicles, called CAEFA. He will address us in Chinese, and he will be helped and translated by equally good friend Kai Zhao, who is one of the top leaders on this on the China's experiment with methanol fuel. And I urge you to talk to them later and learn about what's happening in China. They've been instrumental behind the Jaffa effort, and we look forward to hearing from you. Please.
尊敬的各位来宾，大家下午好。
Distinguished guests, good afternoon.
非常高兴呢，有这样一次机会，向大家呢介绍中国甲醇燃料及甲醇汽车产业化应用的情况。
I'm very glad to present here to introduce methanol work in China.
首先呢，我向大家需要说明的是呢，中国将甲醇作为交通能源，对我们现代具有积极的意义，也同时具有长远的战略意义。
First of all, I want to say that China to look at methanol as a transportation fuel is very important strategically.
一是满足交通能源持续增长和汽车工业可持续发展的需要，这是我们的第一个意义。
It meets the needs of the sustainable development of automotive industry and the increasing oil consumption for transportation.
第二个呢，就是发挥我们国家煤炭资源相对丰富的优势。
It also utilizes the advantages of our domestic natural resources, which means coal.
清洁有效利用煤炭资源，优化煤炭的消费结构。
So the modern coal chemical technology can effectively utilize the resources and reduce the CO2 emissions.
再一个呢，就是充分利用现有的交通能源体系，那包括内燃机汽车的技术。
And this technology can best utilize the existing transportation and energy systems by using the mature internal combustion engine technologies.
也包括呢现有汽车的这些储存输配的这些基础设施，还有法律法规标准规范。
And also the infrastructures and the existing storage, distribution, and refilling facilities and the standards, specifications, and regulations.
刚才卢福特先生已经在他的讲话当中讲了，就是说现在因为机动车排放对中国的大气环境的影响已经非常重，影响非常大。
Mr. Gao Luft just mentioned about the emissions from the automotives cause a lot of problems in China big cities.
中国政府呢，包括我们整个的社会，都需要寻找一种非常清洁的交通能源。
Every people are now seeking for clean transportation fuel in China.
甲醇呢，是一碳含氧化合物，它的各种污染物排放都相对汽油来讲是大幅度降低的。
Methanol is a one carbon chemicals which can greatly reduce the emissions comparing to gasoline.
它的颗粒物排放呢，要与汽油相比呢，从这个质量上，就是重量上下降70%以上，数量上下降50%以上。
For the particle matters which emitted from the cars, the particle matters emissions in the weight can be reduced by 70% and by 50% in the numbers.
它的积极意义呢，还体现在能够提高能源使用效率，降低燃料使用费用。
And the good thing about methanol is also like improving the energy efficiency and reduce the fuel cost.
目前呢，我们 M100的就100%的甲醇燃料呢，在山西的售价呢，每升呢，是0.4个美元。
So for like M100, which means like pure methanol, it's sold like for the price of $1.4 per liter.
与汽油相比呢，燃料费用呢可以降低48%，在山西。
Comparing to the price of gasoline, it can reduce about 46% of gasoline fuel cost.
这个下面我就介绍一下中国甲醇燃料、甲醇汽车产业化的这个甲醇燃料这个产业化的情况。应该说呢，这个前期由国家组织的甲醇燃料这种应用的这种研究，为我们今天甲醇汽车、甲醇燃料的产业化奠定了非常好的基础。
And the Chinese government has already established a serious technology R&D research and demonstration project, which lays out a very good basis of this industrialization.
目前呢，我们甲醇汽油产业化的应用呢，主要是由地方政府和企业来推进。
Now the methanol gasoline work is now mainly by the local government and the companies.
汽车这一块呢，主要是由我们国家的工信部在进行试点运行。
And the methanol automotives is now mainly conducted by the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology.
我们甲醇作为燃料使用呢，是采用2种方式。第一种呢，就是甲醇汽油。
And there are two basic technologies for using methanol as a transportation fuel. The first one is using like a methanol gasoline.
在这个燃料在现有车辆使用，不需要改车，非常方便。
The methanol gasoline is used for existing automotives, no change of the car.
我们第二种的发展路线呢，就是说高比例甲醇燃料在专用车上使用。
And another technology is high concentration methanol fuel used for retrofitted or cars or dedicated methanol vehicles.
那这种专用车呢，主要是两种方式。第一种呢是对现有的汽油车进行改装，第二种呢，我们是研发专门的甲醇燃料的这种新车。
So two different methanol cars. One is retrofitted from existing cars. Another way is you can buy a new car with dedicated methanol engine.
2013年呢，我们甲醇直接用于车用、民用还有工业燃料，一共呢达到430万吨。
In 2013, the total consumption of methanol fuel in cars, civil use, industrial areas, it was about 4.3 million tons.
如果要加上二甲醚消耗的甲醇的量，那目前来讲呢，就是甲醇作为燃料使用，已成为它下游的第一消费领域，在中国。
And if we consider DME, which is dimethyl ether, which is made of methanol, again, and using like blending in LPG for cooking, the methanol actually is the biggest application in the market of fuel.
我们有4个省，由省级政府呢来组织 M15甲醇汽油的试点工作。
And 4 provinces have carried out pilot work of M15 methanol gasoline.
还有6个省呢推进那个相关的工作，比如说制定标准等等。
And there are other 6 provinces are working on preparation like standardization to promote M15.
除了这10个省以外，我们还有15个省所在的企业在进行这种甲醇燃料的推广应用工作。
And there are companies in 15 provinces and cities are now promoting and sell this methanol gasoline.
包括中国化工和延长石油等大型国有企业呢，都开展了相关的工作。
Including some state-owned enterprises like CNCC and Yanchang Petroleum.
我们现在呢，已经建立起了比较完善的技术保障体系。
And now China has established a relatively mature system.
有30多个高校和研究单位开展技术研发和检测实验工作。
And there are more than 30 universities and research institutes are carrying out R&D and testing work.
我们也批准颁布了，包括正在编制的这个甲醇燃料，包括甲醇燃料的相关的国家标准、行业标准，还有地方标准。
And there are standards issued and in preparation in the national level and also in the local level.
这些标准呢，包括产品的质量、生产工艺、加注站等技术标准和管理标准。
And these standards include technology standards, management standards of product quality, production technology, and refueling stations.
同时呢，我们也建立起甲醇燃料这个运营保障体系。
We also established methanol fuel supply and operation systems.
我们现有的过剩的这个甲醇的产能，如果把它用作燃料上，我们完全可以替代2000万吨的石油。
And we know that China has overcapacity of methanol production. If we can use those overcapacity of methanol, it can replace about 20 million tons of oil.
我们已经建成10万吨以上规模的调配基地43座，总的调配能力超过了1100万吨。
And we have now like 43 blending facilities built with more than 100,000 tons of blending capacities each, and the total blending capacity is over 11 million tons.
我们已经投入使用的加注站超过这个1500座。如果这个是甲醇汽油的，如果要加上甲醇燃料的，我们大概能达到2000万吨，2000座。
And there are over 1,500 refuel stations for M15 gasoline. And if we added like 500 more for like methanol fuel, which means M100.
刚才是我们燃料的产业化情况。那我再介绍一下我们甲醇汽车的研制 包括试点情况。
And in the vehicle side, I'm gonna explain more on the research and pilot operation.
从2005年开始呢，我们中国的汽车企业开始甲醇汽车的研发。
Since 2012, Chinese companies began the R&D work of methanol vehicles.
这种研发呢，一个是呢，就是说技术的研发，再一个就是各种性能的汽车各种性能的测试。
And the work is divided by the technology and the test.
目前呢，中国已经研发了14款的甲醇汽车。
And now there are 14 models of methanol vehicles.
那包括轿车、载重车，还有轻型厢式货车、公交车等。
And including cars, trucks, light vans, and buses.
我们现在有8家企业，8家汽车生产企业，可以这个完全做到这个甲醇汽车的产业化生产。
And there are 8 Chinese automotive OEMs can manufacture these models of methanol cars.
应该说我们有的企业在目前就可以达到几十万辆的这个汽车的装配能力。
Some of them has like production capability over 100,000 units each year.
这组照片呢，就是我们在甲醇汽车研发的过程当中，在高温、高原、高寒地区进行的实验。在这些地区呢，我们汽车这个试验下来都是运行非常平稳。
And these are the photographs taken in the road test, in the high temperature, high altitude, and alpine region test, and all the methanol cars are worked very perfectly.
这个是我们在汽车研发过程当中进行的发动机强化耐久实验。
And these are the engine durability tests in the R&D work.
从这个发动机这个运行之后啊，这个发动机打开之后呢，里边可以看到我们各种运动的部件呢，基本上正常的都属于正常的磨损。
So after the test, all the different parts are dismantled and tested. So all the parts are working very good and no more like corrosion or other quality issues.
这些照片呢，一个是我们这个研制的甲醇汽车，在国家这个专业的车辆试验场进行整车可靠性实验。这个图片呢是下边这个图片，这个图片我们是进行排放的测试实验。
And the first two photos is a road vehicle test, reliability test on the national authorized testing centers. And the third one is emission test in the national laboratory.
这组照片呢是我们中国研发的甲醇燃料商用车，这个功能样车在进行组装，包括在这个煤矿进行路况实验。
And these are photos of methanol commercial vehicles in assembly and road test in a coal mine.
应该说呢，我们中国的甲醇汽车的这个研发呀，完全是按照我们国家汽车研发的这个技术规范和要求进行开发的。
So all the R&D work of methanol vehicles is conducted according to all the national standards and in the authorized national laboratories.
现在呢，我们有刚才说了14款车，我们也有我再把这个几台车
As I
呢再
mentioned
跟大家
before,
介
there
绍
are
一下。
14 models. These are some of them.
这是我们目前在试验运行的甲醇这个轿车。
And these are Geely M100 methanol cars in operation.
这是我们研发的这个甲醇多用途乘用车。
These are the M100 like MPVs.
这个是目前在陕西用在邮政的这个甲醇多用途乘用车。
And these are MPVs working in Shanxi province for like mail delivery.
这是我们将甲醇轿车涂装成这个甲醇出租车。
And these are methanol cars using for taxis.
这是我们中国一汽研究的 M85 甲醇轿车。
And these are M85 methanol cars produced by FAW, which is the biggest car OEM in China.
这是我们中国华晨汽车研发的灵活燃料轿车。
And this is a flexible fuel cars developed by Brilliance, which is a Chinese OEM.
这是我们散汽集团研发的甲醇柴油双燃料载重自卸车。
And this is a methanol diesel dual fuel truck developed by Shanxi Automotive Group.
这是由我们中国重汽研发的，同样是甲醇柴油双燃料载重自卸车。
And this is another heavy-duty truck, methanol diesel dual fuel truck developed by Sinotruck.
这是由我们郑州宇通研发的这个甲醇公交车，目前有100辆在山西在运行。
And this is a methanol bus produced by Yutong Group, and now there are 100 such buses in operation in Shanxi province.
这是由我们这个一汽解放公司这个研发的 M100甲醇载重车的工装样车，这个不算正式的车辆。
And there are sample trucks produced by FAW 解放.
这是由我们一汽敬业公司研制的6款甲醇燃料的发动机，都是 M100。
And these are the M100 methanol engines produced by FAW Jingye Engine Company.
从2012年呢，中国工信部呢组织开展甲醇汽车试点工作。
In 2012, MIT started the methanol vehicle pilot.
我们开展这项工作呢，主要是3个目的。第一个呢，就是说对甲醇汽车可靠性、清洁性等等进行评价。
So there are 3 goals in the MIT pilot. The first one is work on the comprehensive assessment like performance and emissions.
第二个呢，我们就是要建立甲醇汽车的相关的技术标准。
And the second goal is to establish the standards and the technology criteria on the vehicles.
第3个目的呢，主要就是制定甲醇汽车的产业政策。
And then to raise out some policies for the industry.
这4点呢，主要是涉及到5个省份的11个城市。
The pilot is now involving 11 cities in 5 provinces.
从我们现在批准的方案呢，我们计划投用的试点运行的甲醇汽车呢是2385辆。
And in the pilot, we plan to run 2,385 methanol vehicles.
我们这次试点运行呢，主要就是刚才上面介绍的研发的由汽车企业直接生产的甲醇汽车，不包括甲醇的改装车。
All those vehicles are included in the previous slides, which are new manufactured so-called methanol vehicles. It's not existing cars which is retrofitted is not included.
11个城市的试点方案我们是分批批准的。那现在呢，因为每个城市呢批准的时间不一样，所以呢目前只有现在6个城市呢，我们投入运行的车辆呢407辆。
So the 11 cities have to submit their own operation plans, and now there are 6 cities have finished the plan, and now their cars are in operation.
今年年底呢，我们还会有100辆的出租车投入运行，这样到今年年底的话，我们整个投入运行就会超过500辆。
And by the end of this year, there will be over 500 methanol vehicles in their operation.
到明年的5月份，我们最早结束的试点这个工作的，150辆有150辆这个甲醇出租车在中国的山西晋中。
And the Jinzhong City, Shanxi Province, is going to be the first one to complete this pilot by May next year.
非常感谢这个大会对我的邀请。
Thank you very much for inviting me to this summit.
谢谢大家。
Thank you very much.
时间超了。
谢谢。Please join us. Well, that's very impressive. I just wanted to remind all of you that 1 of 4 vehicles made on this planet is manufactured in China. So China today is in a position to determine, by virtue of its market, what types of cars are going to be made, what types of fuels are going to be used, and it's very, very important to pay attention to what the Chinese market is the signal that this market is sending us. And across the East China Sea, there is Japan, and I'm very glad that we have today with us Nobi Koga, who is General Manager for Energy Affairs with Toyota. And Toyota, by the way, I think is selling also with one of the big players in China, so as well as here in Israel and other countries, and would be glad to know what you have on your plate. Please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nobi Koga, General Manager of Energy Affairs Department. We are not the biggest manufacturer in Israel nor in China. Maybe in Israel, maybe second or third. So still, but in the global scale, we are one of the largest manufacturer. And today, I'm going to speak about our strategy. And before saying that, Israel and Japan have and had maybe a similar energy situation. So large, high energy external dependency of fossil energy and the big export of high-tech products. But the situation seems to change in Israel after finding rich gas reserves. I envy you. So anyway. But still, as highlighted by Gal, still it's sensible enough to highlight about the energy, chaotic environment. Although the energy price, crude price is dropping due to some geopolitical stuff, in the mid to long term anyway, energy price is going up. And of course, energy will be consumed in the more and more developing countries. So this is the basic strategy of Toyota. And there are three pillars. Of course, efficiency improvement and also diversification of energy, and also paying attention to the consumer's behavior. Of course, the most critical factor is the efficiency improvement. Of course, the efficiency improvement, meaning the fuel economy of the car needs to be further improved and maybe boosted by the traffic flow improvement. They also, I will talk to you later, but in some cases, or in more and more cases, especially in an urban environment, we need to seriously think about the modal shifting or modal mix. And of course, the second pillar is the energy diversification. And the third and probably most difficult factor is at consumers. Even though BMW or Toyota are providing the good car and the super efficient vehicles, and the energy company are providing low carbon energy, it won't work if the consumer will not select. So that's why we need to attract the consumer's attention by economies or the other policy support, and also, of course, attractive value from our side. And the first pillar is about the vehicle efficiency, as I said. And so efficiency will be improved not only by the engine or transmission, but also the vehicle itself. The best example is probably the BMW i-Series, like a full carbon monocoque lightweight body. And also the more and more the importance is growing, attention is growing on the real world economy. So to do this, we need to encourage more consumer to drive efficiently. My background is started from the engine engineering and designing a calibration experiment. So I'm piston engineer. I believe in still the future of the engine. And as for the engine efficiency or internal combustion engine efficiency, there is no silver bullet. There is no single solution to improve everything. So depends on the vehicle size, or depends on the usage pattern. Probably technology to use at the vehicle will be different. Maybe turbocharged, or maybe Atkinson cycle, or maybe downsized boost engine or lean burn combustion. So it all depends how this vehicle will be used and what type of the vehicle is using this engine. And of course, the Toyota has the let's say core competence, meaning the hybrid transmission technology. Of course, this boosts the vehicle overall efficiency. But not only this, it has the beauty, especially for Toyota. No matter where the future the vehicle will go, either to the full electric or plug-in application, or maybe fuel cell car, our experiences on the manufacturing and engineering will be used to either pathways, like power control unit or secondary battery. We are accumulating lots of experience and manufacturing. Currently, cumulative volume of hybrid vehicle since the first launch of the first Prius in 1997 in Japanese domestic market, cumulative volume was just exceeding 7 million. But still, as highlighted by the introduction film, still the proportion in the global vehicle sales is around 2 to 3%. It is not a big number, but we hope this number will grow in the next decades. The second pillar is about energy diversification. Of course, crude or petroleum products are playing and also will play quite still important role. But as you can see here, maybe it depends on the country. Some country will push more natural gas resource primary energy, or maybe some others may push more coal, like highlighted by Professor Ma. But anyway, as you can see here, in terms of the power control unit, still the big internal combustion engine, as I said, is still quite important power control unit of the vehicles. And this probably in the next future, we believe in that a plug-in car will play quite important role. One of the beauty of the plug-in car application is that, okay, on top of existing our hybrid technology, just adding the small amount of the battery and also as well as the external charger, it completes, and enabling short distance electric vehicle drive as well as super efficient long distance drive during the weekends. And then for the next step, I'm proud to announce that we have just launched the first commercial application of the fuel cell vehicles, fueling hydrogen. And this first launch will be is conducted in Japanese domestic market, starting this month, and it is expected to start in US and Europe from next year. But it needs hydrogen anyway, which infrastructure will not be ready. So that's why introduction strategy is, of course, we are launching the vehicles where reasonably the hydrogen infrastructure will be deployed or matured. And from this point, probably our engineering effort is gradually shifting from exploring the technology breakthrough on the hydrogen fuel cell stack or the storage component, but shifting to more cost reduction by innovation on the designing, on the production phase, as well as the volume effect. And already a large production cost reduction was achieved from the predecessor, which was we launched in 2008, and we expect a further cost reduction by the next decade. And for realizing this, we are now considering the several applications, not only for the passenger car application, but also the same fuel cell stack may be used to the city bus or industrial mobility like forklifts, and as well as the stationary power generation devices. But always chicken and egg, as I said, we need a hydrogen. First, in economically viable range. But the next step, which we have to seriously think about, is that how to deploy low carbon hydrogen in the market. Probably in the first phase, hydrogen will be produced from the natural gas or maybe the naphtha or the other petroleum products at surplus capacity at the refinery. But if we stick to use these, let's say, the gray or black hydrogen, we cannot necessarily reduce the carbon footprint across the well-to-wheel range. So that's why we need to deploy the society and energy. We would ask the energy company to deploy the low-carbon hydrogen. But the third pillar is about the society. Even though Toyota or BMW are launching efficient cars, it doesn't work if the traffic is looking like this. This is a snapshot in the city of Jakarta. So totally deadlocked or jammed. And this is the one data from Japanese Automotive Research Institute. But traffic situation in Israel may not be so crucial. But for instance, in the city of Jakarta, the average vehicle speed in the city of Jakarta is about 6 miles, about 10 kph, far slower than the bicycle. You may not be able to imagine, but this is a reality. And the fact is that, okay, so far the mobility or transport system were developed in the developed countries like US, Europe, or Japan, or the others. But from this point, the transport needs or demand will be developed and will be increased in emerging nations where road design or road infrastructure is not necessarily well designed. So this is one example. Okay, if the average speed of the city in Jakarta will be increased from 10 kph to 20 kph, carbon emission as well as energy consumption will be improved by 30%. Actually, the 30% improvement of the energy consumption by new car launch, like a BMW i or Toyota Prius, is not so easy. It takes time to replace all the fleets. But if the city design or if some improvement will be properly applied to the city, this big number improvement will be achieved. So this is why we are also interested. We have been also interested in the traffic flow improvement. The one of the example, as I highlighted in the first set of the slides, is the modal shifting, using compact electric mobility, three-wheeler or four-wheelers. I saw several micro-mobility in the exhibition hall, but Toyota has been working. And on to the recent example is that we have just launched a large-scale demonstration in city of France, Grenoble, by launching electric three-wheelers having active leaning function. And in this regard, quite similar to the BMW, Toyota is not only the provider of the mobility itself, but also we are provider for the mobility service in cooperation with the city government. So this is what we have also studied. This is the final slide. Okay, carbon footprint or emissions or the others. I say this is important. But actually, I drive GT86 Sports Coupe, let's say exotic and high performance car. Carbon footprint is not low enough comparing to the Prius because it is sexy, it is sporty. I like still, let's say, drifting or that kind of stuff. But car population grows. As car population grows, the society the car needs to be further environmental friendly, car has to be much safer, and the car has to meet the requirement or demand of energy diversification, which necessarily ordinary consumer are not interested in. So that's why all what we have to think in such important discussion platform is how to coordinate these different, let's say, motivations. Okay, individual expectation to cars are different from the social expectation to cars. And all what manufacturer like BMW, Toyota has to do is that, okay, we need to put more attractive value to consumers. And the other expected role to the government is that, okay, we need long-lasting and comprehensive policies. Otherwise, people lose the interest in such demand. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Nobi. I'm hearing you talking about hydrogen fuel cars. I'm being reminded that 12 years ago, President George W. Bush, in his State of the Union address, said, I will never forget it, he said, a child born today, his first car will be a hydrogen fuel cell car. And I had a child that was born at that time, so I don't think, I nearly lost hope that by the time that she's old enough to have a driver's license, her first car will be a hydrogen fuel cell car, but you certainly restored my confidence. Now it's about getting the 7 million Japanese yen to pay for it. But I think on a more serious note, I think that what we heard here is a very interesting distinction between two worlds. The world of sexy, the world of now, the world of low carbon, save the world, granola, the whole package. And then a little bit of a different perspective from China, where it's more of a basic approach, car, even if it's run on fuels made from coal or more carbon-intensive sources. I think the analogy of what BMW means in the developed world and what BMW means for the developing world, I think that sort of sums up everything. And maybe, do we have a few minutes for, how are we doing with time?
We have a question from Twitter from somebody in the audience, Celine Cluzel, which I'm guessing is targeted to Ma Liang. She asks, she's a principal consultant at Element Energy, and she asks, how is China handling the toxicity of methanol?
实际甲醇毒性这个问题呢，也是在很长一段时间，困扰这个中国这个甲醇原料推广应用的一个问题。
So the methanol toxicity is a long-term issue of this industry.
实际上呢，就是说，过去呢，总是大家认为甲醇应该是比汽油毒性更大，但是呢，无论是早期美国的研究和我们中国现在更进一步的研究，都充分的说明，甲醇作为这个交通燃料来应用的话，它的对人体的这个职业接触的影响、汽车的排放，这个 这个也对人体健康影响，它都是降低的，而不是增加的。
So generally, in the past, people believe that methanol is more toxic than gasoline, but from the R&D work done by US and now done by Chinese, and we found that actually methanol is more safer than gasoline in the distribution and real use in the real applications.
这一方面呢，这个结论呢是由我们中国的疾病控制中心进行研究、检测、实地检测得出来的这个结论。
And this results was actually conducted by the Chinese National Disease Controlling Center by a series of tests and R&D work.
我们对这个汽车的排放、各种污染物的排放，我们都做过测试。不管对于哪种污染物来讲，甲醇的这种污染物的排放，相对汽油来讲，我们都是降低的。
And all the different emissions from the cars are also tested in China, and no matter which chemical emitted from a gasoline car, methanol car offers a cleaner and better results.
所以说呢，甲醇的应用来讲，不论是对职业接触人群来讲，还是汽车尾气的排放来讲，对于我们环境、人体健康这种影响，都是有改善，而不是加重。
So, like methanol use in automotive, no matter in the real handling side or the emission side, which is now better than gasoline car.
With that said, I just want to add one thing. Please do not drink your fuel. It's not a good idea. Don't drink it. But don't drink gasoline either, by the way. Any more questions? No more questions. Well, I think you have a wonderful group representing almost all of the parts of the world in terms of vehicle manufacturing. From Japan, China, Europe, United States. Well, I'm not making cars. I just hope to think that when you look at where the market is moving, you can certainly see that the big growth in demand is in Asia. One of the reasons we established this initiative and with the Joint Alcohol Fuel Alliance is to embark on this information exchange to enrich each other, and I'm really happy that we could have you all here coming from distances and joining us, and please take a benefit of further communicating with our guests and learning more about what they do in the different countries. And with this, I'd like to close this session. Thank you very much.